Hello, welcome to the Man of Thought, aka the Villain of Truth, aka the Black Panther of Nigeria. Thanks for joining today. Today, I want to be answering few questions from the messages I receive about being an influencer. And so I titled today's episode, The Challenges of an Influencer. Oh, so today we are speaking about the challenges of becoming an influencer. And that's what I will be focusing on. Let me just have a little bit of settings so I can. Oh, wait, hold on. I know what I want to do. For those who will be joining me, let me just do something quick. Oops. Challenges of becoming an influencer. That's exactly what we want to talk about. So I need people to understand. Hello, Rusty. Thanks for joining. I want to actually answer few questions that certain individuals have asked me about challenges of being an influencer and how do I see the idea of being an influencer. And so some people are willing to go into it of becoming an influencer. Yeah. So that's what today's subject is all about. Challenges of becoming an influencer. That's what we want to talk on. So I have a few questions that a lot of people have asked me, and I'm like, okay, today tends to be a great day for me to answer those questions. But before I proceed, I would like to say this that I don't think I'm actually an influencer. I just think I come on live and I speak about what I think. And I call myself the man of thought. And the man of thought simply means that thank you for joining Ronaldo Squad. And the reason why I call myself the man of thought is basically because I so much wrestle with my thoughts in everything I do. I am somebody who wrestle with my thinking, and I don't always believe I'm right, but I'm always looking for the fine line because looking at life, I understand that there is nothing wrong or nothing is right. It is you to know which particular um, part of life you need to apply at that particular moment. And I used to tell people sometimes when you hear the word "thou shalt not kill," it doesn't mean you shouldn't kill. It just means do not kill for your own pleasure. And when you hear the word "thou shalt not lie," it simply means you shouldn't lie. But that doesn't mean that when you get to a particular position in your life when um, you're not supposed to speak the truth, you have to find a way to defend yourself so you don't so you don't perish. So I'm just the man of thought, and I always ask myself, what's the thin line between every conversation? Because there's nothing right and there's nothing wrong, and that's why I decide I would answer some of the questions certain individuals have been asking. One of the questions I've been asked in the past is, what inspired you to become an influencer, and how did you start your journey? For me, like I said earlier, I do not think I'm an influencer. I think I just speak up my mind. But it only began from the idea of when I was a little bit young. I I had certain people in my life when I was young, like people like Brad John when I used to go to church and the rest of it. The moment after the death of my father, everything began to change in my life. And so we had an elder sister. I had to follow her everywhere. And my elder sister tends to be an interpreter in the church. And while she was an interpreter in the church, I fall into the idea of mixing myself with the children of the pastor. He was actually a reverend, and I was with them for a while, and they helped me towards my education. They helped me towards a lot of things in my life, and I would say most of the things I understood about Bible. I used to be a drummer. I used to be a guitarist. I used to play guitar. I play drums. I play saxophone. I play a little bit of flute, and I'm an instrumentalist. Let me just put it that way. But we kind of had a sense of reading the Bible almost every time. And after I started reading the Bible, it came to a point where I started asking myself a lot of questions. Whenever I read the Bible, I start asking myself a lot of questions. And I realized that one of the things that I understood about the scripture or the Bible itself is that you should focus more on life and not focus more on materials. And I looked at everything that have existed based of history and all kinds of things. I see that life itself is very special. Every other thing we are doing tends to be secondary. Buying a house, buying a car, having any other thing, they are all secondary. But the primary goals is that we need to experience life. If you are not experiencing life and you're experiencing the secondary part of life, which is like you party, you buy houses, you buy cars, and you keep doing all these things, you get to a point in your life and you realize like you have wasted your life. And every single time you have wasted your life, you would not be able to recall it. It's like, how conscious are you in the time of your existence? And are you deliberate in the way you want to live your life? And one of it also is like, in life we are absolutely not in control of everything of our life. We are not in control of everything in our life. But one thing we can do is that we can make a decision to be aware of everything that happens in our life, and with that we can make right choices at some point. And so those questions begin to arise in my mind, and I choose to love life rather than choose to follow after what life has to offer, because humans are just creative and everything we are creating is just objects. And so I got fed up of chasing after objects, because I see that people getting addicted to drugs and people going after things that we consider to be education, things that we consider to be material things. All these things are just all kinds of addiction. And at the end of the day, a lot of people are not fully experiencing life, but they are only doing things that is pleasing the society or just trying to do what society expects. So while I was around 16 years old, I think I've read the scripture, the Bible, at least about 5 times at that particular time. From the age of 10 to the age of 16, I've read the Bible, Genesis to Revelation, at least 5 good times. And I realized that each of the time I read the Genesis to Revelation, it's always a different lesson to learn. So I got to a point where I decided I I choose to live life, because when you part of the things I love was about Proverbs and it was about Ecclesiastes. So when I got to the age of 23, 24, I was already making video at that time. I was still a barber. I used to make video. But one of the things I realized is I see that most of the things when I look at people, I realized I had a gift, and that gift, when I see people, there are things I always see about most people, and it's like people are seeking for solutions in their life while they are going towards the struggle of life, and yet they don't have the solution. It's like they are blinded they can see physically, but they are blinded, maybe mentally, maybe in a way of vision. And so I was just like, okay, maybe I can talk to people. But I don't have the desire to be a pastor. I don't have a desire or believe that God called me, because my understanding begins to broaden and I realize most of the things in the scriptures, some of them are true, many of them are true, and some of are basically things that have happened in history, and some of it tends to be they are not actually true. They are just a myth for us to be able to understand. But people cannot debunk all these things. And if you can debunk most of all these things, you end up becoming a slave to certain individuals. And so I make a decision like, okay, I have to make a conscious decision to talk to people about some of these things, and that's how I started the journey of being, maybe we call it an influencer, or I would say that's how I came to the public light. That's for that. People ask me questions. They say, "What do you define success as an influencer? Is it based on numbers, engagement, or something more personal?" How do you define success as an influencer? Is it based on numbers, engagement, or something more personal? I think that for me, success as being an influencer is like, am I creating the closer people, those who I engage or who engage with my videos, are they having something that makes them have a relationship with me? And I think that when I look at um, what I've done with my social media presence, is that I've been able to have certain relationships that are kind of nice. And till date, I still speak to certain individuals. We all relate, we talk, and I've been able to build good relationship with certain individuals. And I think for me, that's the success of it. People who I never knew from anywhere, um, now I can talk to them all because of social media, and they understand my mind. Probably some of them can see my authenticity, and they can see my flaws in real time also. So for me, I think it's building the relationship, not the engagement, not the number, not the how big the social media space is. Because to have engagements and to have much people watch you on YouTube or something like that, it's very easy. If you have a message, all you can do is go through Google Ads and you can promote your YouTube channel. And if you promote your YouTube channel with maybe $50 or $100, you most likely would have, at least in a day, you can have up to 5,000 subscribers and the rest. But for me, I'm like, are these people organic? And I understand that there's an importance of promoting your channel, but at the same time, I just want to take, even this moment, I'm still using it like to build myself and to learn few things about life. And Ron says, "Good afternoon, brother. Glad to catch the live." Yeah, thanks for joining, and Ron. I'm just actually answering few questions that a lot of people have been asking me, and if you want to ask me any question, please feel free to ask also. Some of the questions people were asking me, number one, I've answered it. Number two, I've answered it. Number three, okay, number three question is, how do you stay authentic and true to yourself while creating content that appeals to your audience? Well, I do not think that my message kind of appeal to every audience. I think I just have to be authentic to whatever I'm doing, and I know when I don't need to be authentic. And some people will be like, "Oh, what do you mean by the word know when not to be authentic?" Is that every time you bridle your tongue to say something that you would have most likely said, but you decide just to hold it because you know it's not good for the YouTube space, or it's not good for audience to consume because it's going to maybe disrupt them. Sometimes I hold back on those things. And so I don't know if I'm completely authentic. I would say I just try to talk to people that they get the message. And in fact, most times when I speak, I'm not interested in if everyone agree with what I say. I'm just talking about my perception and what I understand about life. Before I came to this life, before I started existing, there were countless of people who have spoken before me, and they have their audience and they've been able to say things. But rather, people will still make decisions to live their life, no matter what you say. People are going to have their beliefs, people are going to make choices, and I am not the one to change them. I am just part of the words that they listen to while they are going towards the journey of their life. It's more or less like I'm a radio, and they can pick a particular information from me and apply it to their life, and then they would see a greater result. Not like I am built of wisdom, and every single time when people come to me, I'm like a tree of wisdom, and then I want to share wisdom to everyone. No, regardless of who you are, even if you're King Solomon, no matter what you say, certain people would not take your advice, and it is not meant for them to take your advice, because life is about chapters and chapters, and people know. I believe if we are conscious with what we are saying, people are going to, pick up on certain information and they can use it for their own growth. So that's how I see that particular side. Somebody also asked me a question, number four, and they say, what strategies have helped you grow your audience and keep them engaged over time? I have no strategy. I really have no strategy. Because if I do have strategy, I would have followed through the principles of YouTube. YouTube give me time when people are going to be on live. YouTube will tell me the time that my audience will be on live. In fact, YouTube will tell me other channels that my audience watch. YouTube will tell me, and if I see the channels my audience watch, I can see the topic they are interested in, and I can talk about those topics. But for me, regardless of the time that I understand that YouTube, my audience will be on live, I can decide to go live any single time. Even when I know my audience would not be available, I just go on live. I just speak up my mind. Once my spirit asks me to do that, I just do it. I'm not strategic about engaging people. So it's not because I don't care, it's just because my life does not follow certain um, kinds of principle. I keep myself kind of open. Like if you want to relate with me, you always have the opportunity to talk to me. And that's why I'm one of the people who I will put my WhatsApp number on my YouTube space. You can talk to me. If you call me, I would always pick up your call. I will talk to you. I don't care where you are, who you are, what you are. Just talk to me. I'm going to respond to you. But the message, it is important to me to pass that message at that particular time. And so that's what I do. So I would touch some people, I wouldn't be able. And I think everything is a matter of time, and I will grow with a matter of time. Rusty says, okay, Rusty kept put the WhatsApp number. That's my WhatsApp number in case you want to call during the show. Number five question is, what is the most challenging part of being an influencer in today's digital landscape? What is the most challenging part of being an influencer in today's digital landscape? I think the biggest challenge of being an influencer, I think there are a couple of them. One of it is you're going to engage with people who knows more than you, and you have to be careful what you say, because you can also make just one little mistake and people are going to capitalize on that particular mistake, and they can tarnish your image just because of one mistake. And this is the reason why a lot of people love making videos and they edit the video before they post it. For me, um I really don't care. I really don't care, because I believe humans can always build themselves. And I know when I come to life and I make some videos, a lot of people insult, they abuse and they do all those kind of things, but it doesn't really get to me. The only thing that can get to me is two things: when you come after my nation, or when you come after my family. Those are just the two things. If you say negative things about my nation, or you say negative things about my family, that's the only time I can say, okay, this person would have, maybe then I can even give you a feedback. But apart from that, there's nothing anyone can say that can actually have any impact on me. And I say those particular things, and if I see that you are actually deliberate coming towards those paths, I just know it's a setup, and then it's not working. But if you eventually go there not deliberately, I will call your attention to it. But if you're doing it deliberately, then I'm like, you can't, you are not getting me. So that's for the fifth one. So the challenge is that people say negative things, and let me say, sometimes when I see negative message, I always try to be human. I always try to be human, and that means I sometimes want the words they say to hurt me a little bit, and I will deliberately read that message like 3 to 4 times and feel the pain, because for me it's just a matter of 1 minute or 30 seconds. No matter what you say, I just swipe on and it's gone. In fact, the idea about YouTube, if you understand the idea about social media, it's like, just let people talk. That's the success in YouTube, or in the idea of social media. That's why you see that there are a lot of people who are doing things that are controversial, and the reason for the controversial statement is just to make people engage. So negative or positive, it doesn't matter. When you're talking about Jay-Z and you're talking about Beyonce, it doesn't matter what anyone is saying. The idea is that, are people engaging? So that's how I see it. The sixth one is, how do you balance creating content that you are passionate about with the content that you know will perform well? Well, I think I try to balance both, in the idea of I mostly focus on what I'm passionate about. I mostly focus on what I'm passionate about, but at the same time, for me, I'm only interested also if what I am saying is going to be useful to people, because I don't know what my passion is. I don't know if I have passion for anything, but I think I'm only interested. Maybe that would be my passion. I'm only interested in the fact that, are people having challenges, and can I be of an help? Do I have the necessary information or knowledge to be able to help them out? Because if I have a message and no one is going to listen to it, then I can just say those messages to my children, or say it to myself, or record it and keep it somewhere. So I focus on what is important to people. And sometimes some things I say may not be so important to people, but that is life. There are times when, you see, there's one beautiful thing I've studied about life, which is season. There are times when, even if you are the best speaker on earth, you might be at some particular stage in your life, people are not going to applaud you. And a stage also comes in your life where people begin to applaud you, even if you're not saying something that is that sensible. But that time and that season is going to come. And for you, are you dedicated to what you are doing? Do you really have do you really care about the people you are talking to? Hope you are not just saying it just because you want to get something out of them and the rest of it. So for me, that's how I view that. Seventh one, which is going to be, okay, I think it's stop at number 10. Let me just quickly round up this one. I say, what role does collaboration with other influencers or brands play in your growth? Well, I've been having a lot of message. I have currently I blocked about two people today. One of them is from US, one of them is from Nigeria. I blocked them today. They wanted to do adverts and brands. One of them have been talking to me about 2 weeks ago, but today I had to block the number. And the reason is basically because I kept asking them, if you're giving me something and you want me to talk about it or to promote it on my channel and the rest of it, I was asking question about the brand, about the product, about I'm like, can I see these things? How can I get to know these things? How can I confirm these things? Have you done these necessary things? Because I don't want to sell anything that would be harmful to people just because I'm looking for a deal. And so I had to block both of them. One from Nigeria, one, and there's one again. They called me for selling necklace to start selling jewelries also. They contacted me through Instagram and I had to block them. So I don't know about brand. If I see a brand whereby they are being honest and I can go to your office or I can do a little bit of confirmation about your product and the rest of it, and I know it's good, then I would consider working with brands. So the H one is, how do you stay updated with the latest trends without losing your unique voice? I don't have a unique voice. Trends, I talk about what's trending sometimes. I talk about what I want to talk about. I don't think I have any unique voice. We are all human beings. All these things are just, we are just lying to ourselves, making ourselves feel like we're important. What voice is unique? No voice is unique. There are voices that have spoken in the past that are filled with wisdom, and people listen to this kind of people every single time when they were alive. And now this is just our moment. The gift we have is life. We just have to engage with ourselves and discuss at length. Let us, relate to one another. Let us, if we have solutions, let's help ourselves one way or the other. But if it comes to the idea of one person is unique, one unique voice, nothing is unique about anybody's voice for me. We are just in the moment, and a season comes and we might not be there tomorrow. How do you, night one and before the last one, it says, how do you handle criticism or negative feedback from your audience or the public? Negative has no energy around me. It's just social media things. So totally switch, and so that's the reason why the network kind of break. So sorry for that. The ninth one, when I was speaking, that's when it went off. How do you handle criticism or negative feedback from your audience or the public? One thing you need to understand about life is that you can't speak for everybody. God, the creation of man is like we all see things from different angle, and that's the beautiful thing about life. That life is dynamic. So no matter your intelligence in life, humans are not meant to see things in one way. Everybody would see things from different perspective. The job we have is to see that we are also making the right decisions that will be good for everyone. And if that tends to be the case, we just step our best foot forward. We can say certain things, and at the end of the day, we are still wrong, regardless of our intentions. And criticism, when it comes to the idea of people criticizing, it's like negative is important in life. How would you live this life, and every single time you are alive, people begin to praise you? Every time people begin to praise you, like you are doing the right thing, you are a good man, I love, you are filled with wisdom, you are filled with knowledge, you are so intelligent. I don't want such a praise. It doesn't make any sense to me. The realities of life is, in fact, when people are saying that, just understand that there's a pit in front of you. Life has taught me all these things long time ago. I think I was 24, 25, 26. I've experienced all these things. So I see that when people begin to praise you like you are great, just know that there's a downfall somewhere, there's a pit somewhere, and you have to be watchful. So I understand that when people are criticizing you a lot, then that means there's an opportunity for your growth. And so when people say negative things, I'm just like, okay, now there's an opportunity for me to grow and convince them that I can be better. But when people are saying every time positive things about me, I really like, that's not a good sign. Nature has not taught us to be that way. We have to always, negative and positive. The only thing is that when you say negative comments, I am not meant to engage with some of it. And the reason is because you can empower negativity. That means someone says something that is negative, and if you also participate in the negativity, now the negative energy has more power, and now it can influence both the person where it comes from, and it can also have power over you when you begin to give it power. Because the idea is this: when you look at humans, we always say human beings are very powerful. Sometimes we always attribute to certain powerful people, but you will look at it, those same people that you call powerful people, it's not as if humans cannot actually destroy them. Even their security guard can destroy them. Somebody can just hit them and they are gone. But power is what we give to somebody. That means we we keep talking about the greatness, or the perception of us about those people is that we have to protect them because we want them to be a treasure to us, and then we become a servant automatically. But everything we call powerful human being, we give those things power. So the same thing is applicable to negativity. When somebody says negative things to you, it is just negative. But when you engage with it, now you can give negativity power, and then it has more power over you. So that's how I see it. If someone says something negative about me, sometimes some people say something negative about me, my wife will tell me, she will say, "Oh, did you see the negative thing somebody said about you?" I'm like, "Yeah." She says, "Can't you hide the chat?" I'm like, "I can hide the chat now, but why will I hide it? It's something negative now. They are engaging to my content." And I've seen the fact, at least in real time, I've seen certain people who disagreed with me at some point, and at the end of the day, they agreed with me. So that's the beauty of life. Look at this here, Nepa. The last one for today is: how important is it to understand your audience demographics and preferences? Blah 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 blah. Demographics and preferences when creating content. I don't know. There are other questions here, but to those people who have been asking the questions, I just answer 1 to 10. Next time I'm going to answer I'm going to answer the remaining 15, or the ones I have. So Samoye query. What is the main topic for today? Are you there, sir? Are you still there? Is Samoye query still there? I would have loved to have a conversation with you. Hello, sir. Samoye query, please, if you are there, just let me know. Maybe it's not live at the moment. Oh, if Samoye query is there, please let me know, sir. Because I think we had a discussion yesterday, and in our discussion, I realized you were writing some things, and I was not responding to it, and I just started correcting myself. Sometimes there's a setting on the phone whereby you can be live and you would not know that people are sending you message. So all the messages you were sending to me regarding the conversation about Nigeria yesterday, you were asking few questions, and the person who brought my notice to it is Mr. Rusty. Like, you were asking few questions and I wasn't responding to the question. So if you are there, if you can still rephrase some of those questions you asked yesterday, and I would have loved to touch on that particular subject if Samuel Yekwere is still there. So Samuel Yekwere, today, according to the question you asked, I've been talking about few questions that have been asked in the past from those people who have been asking me things about being an influencer. That's what I was actually speaking to. But right now, I would have loved to address that particular thing that you wrote yesterday, because later I was able to see the message. But I think Samoye Query is not live at the moment. Okay. With that being said, I just decided to answer these questions because people have been asking. Thanks for those who have been joining me today. Is there any other question anyone would like to ask me? Or is there any subject that you would want us to touch on? Are there any subjects you would like us to touch on? Is there any question that you have for me? If Samoye Query is there, please you can rephrase the question you asked yesterday that I did not talk about because I did not see it. Mr. Rusty, am I still buffering? Let me even look through this place. If I'm still buffering. I'm not. I'm not at the moment. So, Samoye Query, are you there? Okay. Thank you, Rusty. Ah, it's painful he's gone. But next time, I would love him to address. I would love to address this particular side. Can we touch on personal growth from life experiences and how they shape us as people? Can we touch on personal growth from life experiences and how they shape us as people? Um, can you be specific a little bit so we can just find a ground to establish it on? Because when it comes to the idea of life, most of the things we go through in life, some of it comes from, majority of it comes from our experiences, and the only difference is at this junction of our life, what kind of choices are we making? Trauma. You see, when it comes to the idea of trauma, I think everybody, this is just me speculating and how I see life. I think everybody can get out of trauma except it is something that has medical, that needs medical intervention. But the problem is that there's a lot of medical intervention in a lot of situations that does not need medical intervention, because most of the things we call trauma are things that we experience them and they are not leaving our head. But the reason why they are not leaving our head is basically because sometimes we are not letting them go. We are holding on to those thoughts for so long. Okay, for example, I was let me speak about little thing that has to do with my trauma, my own trauma. For example, after my dad died, one of my auntie, she was from a different father, because my mom had three children. The firstborn was from a different father, and she was the first one. And so I and my second sister, we came from a different father. And my father was a wealthy man, and then he died. So my mom had to take us from my stepmom and bring us back to a place. But after the death of my father, my mom could not raise us, so she has to go and be working. Sometimes in a year, I only see my mom maybe 5 or 10 times in a year. So I was stuck with that my auntie. There is no day in my life for 6 years. There is no day that passed by that my auntie was not beating me. And when I talk about beating, I'm not talking about you talking about kneeling down and raising your hands or stretch your hand and let me flog you. No, she was beating me on my back, beating me every single day of my life for 6 years non-stop. Maybe there are few couple of days that she did not beat me, but I can't recall any day. Maybe on Christmas Day, maybe the days my mom will be around. Yes, she would not touch me when my mom is around. But the reason why she hated me was simply because when I grew up, that's when I understood it. The reason why she was so harsh to me was she wasn't that bad to my sister. In fact, she was not touching my sister. She was only focusing on me. Number one, my mom used to beat her when she does something wrong. And so my mom also kind of did not have that much respect for her dad, and that they had a bad separation or something like that. So I tend to be the only son, and my mom was showing me so much care. Like, this is my son. Then it's like those two things upset her. Like, my mom used to cane her, and my mom did not have good relationship with her dad. And so she was thinking that I was responsible. I was the one who took the love that my mom could have shown to her, and I am the only son of my mom. Oh God. 6 years straight, she kept beating me every single day. Sometimes she would take blade and she would tear me at the back of my body. Sometimes on my bum. Every single time. Sometimes I had to pretend like I faint. Now, when I got to 16, so my dad died when I was 8. She flogged me for I was even confused. She flogged me for 8 years. 8 years. Good years. Maybe I don't know. Any reason is just good enough for her to beat me, like, and she finds pleasure in it. And when we are talking about the beating, it's like the beating has to go for like 2 hours or 3 hours. Sometimes I can't walk because I will do a lot of punishment after the beating. Then when I was in school, secondary school, I experienced the same thing. When I was 16, the beating was so much, like, I got to a particular point, I was just stressed up. I was like, maybe this time I have to take this auntie out. There were days when I had drank kerosene, petrol. Sometimes I was seeking for all kinds of poison at that particular stage. There was a time I took a bottle of Dettol and I drank everything, hoping I was going to die. There was a time I took kerosene, I drank everything. They what do they call it? They use this Coke bottle to measure kerosene, and I drank everything, but I was just gassing up. All kinds of things I drank them, thinking that I was going to die, but I did not. And funny enough, I don't have to go to hospital. I will just find a way and I will get better. So when I was 16, one day I just came back from school, and she came back. I did not see the key to the house, and I was so upset because I know that if I stay outside, when she comes, she's still going to shout on me and the rest of it. And I know, like, I've looked at my life, like, there's nothing I can do to please this lady. She's still going to beat me. But that day I just got upset and I break the door of the house and I went in and I sat down. And then she came back, and when she came back, she asked my sister, who broke the door? My sister said I was the one who broke the door. And then, just like the way she normally does, she's just like, you break the door? And I stood up. I said, if you raise your hand, you are dead. God, see the shock on the eyes of the superior. That day she was shivering. You know, the small boy you have been beating for good 8 years, every single day of your life, and one day the guy just turned up and he says, if you touch me, I'm going to take you out. And I was staring at her, and she can look at it in my eyes, and she saw it that this boy was definitely serious. She ran away and she went to meet my mom. That was how that particular, since that day, she never trusted me. But here's what I realized. Yeah. But one of the things I realized was this: the trauma was with me every single time of my life. Eye of Creator, thanks for joining. And when I got to the age of 28 and my wife was pregnant, I was afraid of my child, because after a period of time, when I was 18, I started doing martial arts. I was practicing a lot of martial arts so I can defend, and I became ruthless. I became very aggressive on the street. There was no place I can't penetrate and go fight. I do a lot of things. I fight a lot of people. In fact, law enforcement, all kinds of people. I don't care, maybe you are in the military. Once I get hold of you, I'm going to do something nasty. And then my wife got pregnant, and I was so scared and I was very afraid. And the only thing I was afraid of was not the money to take care of my child, was not anything, but I was afraid of who I am going to be to my children, simply because I only know how to be what my auntie has always been to me. And I was scared that I was going to traumatize my child. And I was really scared during the time. And that was when I started moving towards the journey of spirituality and start doing a lot of stuff and the rest of it. Now, after I had my son and the rest of it, one day I still realized like this trauma is there, because when my son does something that tends to be a little bit wrong, and I'm like, I want to touch you, I am always afraid of myself. And then I realized the problem. I realized the problem was I needed to call my auntie and I needed to forgive my auntie. That was just only what I needed. Because my auntie then had children. I became more I became more wealthy than almost a lot of people in my family. And so a lot of people come to me for stuff. My auntie, because of the way she has treated me, she was afraid for her children to come close to me. But I realized that for me not to let these particular things to affect my child and to affect my life, I had to forgive my auntie. And when I told her I have forgiven her for everything, and I understood the purpose and the reason why she was all she was to me. Because the reality is this: certain people are wicked or bad to us, and there's no excuse for them to be wicked and bad to us. But the reality is that there's a reason why they became those people. And if we do not understand the reason why they became those people, we are going to hold on to their actions. And when we hold on to their actions, we are not going to be free. When we talk about the issue of trauma, trauma is not something that you see in the sky. Trauma is not something that happens to an object. Trauma is how you have been treated by people. And so the biggest thing you have to do is to relate with whatever you think you have the issues with. Until I had to call my auntie and I told her I've forgiven her and the rest of it, and I hugged her out, and I built a strong relationship between the both of us. That was how I freed myself from that trauma. And so I always believe that the problem about humans is this: we hold on so much to the negative things that people have done to us. And when we begin to glorify it and we say that I am this because of the things that I've experienced. Remember, I used to tell people about how many of my shops have been burnt, how many of my houses have been burnt. There are a lot of things that I can talk about in my life. Like, it was very horrible in the past, but I can't really place my mind on them simply because I made a decision to move forward in my life and I just picked up the lessons. Sometimes I say some things and then when I look back, I'm like, wow. Because there was a time in our life for good 2 weeks, I was not sleeping. I bought property in a place whereby I was in the house and the law enforcement and people, they were just taking each other's life within that environment. In the midnight, you just hear guns everywhere. And the day they burnt the house down, when they burnt my house down, I was grateful and I was happy. But all kinds of things that we have experienced in life, I'm just like, if you see your behavior and you are not pleased with how you act, and you believe that there's something that traumatized you, it is always good to look for that person that has participated in that actions that traumatize you, and then find a way to engage with those people regardless of what they've done. Regardless of what they've done. If we do not have the art of forgiveness, you can never be free in life. That's my perception on trauma. I understand that there are some that needs medical intervention, and if I see the ones that need medical intervention, I will say, okay, maybe this person needs medical intervention because it has happened, it has affected the person's psychology. But for me, you would always be traumatized with your past if you can't separate yourself from what has happened in the past. And when I spoke the other time, I said there are few things God cannot change. And the role says you broke a generational curse that could have moved through the next generation. That's powerful, brother. Yes, ma. Yes, ma. And right now, I wouldn't call myself the best father in the world, but I am always glad, like, the relationship between I and my children is just so profound. It's just joy. There is no regrets on my children on anything at all. And all this would have not been possible. All this would have not been possible if I'd held on to what my auntie did to me, and I would have carried it, and my children's life would have been very miserable. So if we learn to forgive, we can always move forward in life. And I'm not saying it's the only thing because people have different experiences, but I'm saying majority of the time it is based off what people have experienced with certain individuals in the past. That's what still haunts them till date. And so you need to understand that there are things that are impossible. When people tell me that there's nothing impossible for God to do, I tell them it's a lie. There are things that are impossible for God to do. Number one, God can never make choice for you. God never make choice for any man. Number two, God can never change what has happened in your past. God can only change what is happening in the present, and God can only change what can happen in the future. But if you are holding on to the things in the past, you are traumatizing yourself, and God cannot liberate you from such suffering except you liberate yourself from those suffering. And a lot of suffering that a lot of people are going through is not what is actually happening in the moment, but what has happened in the past. And when people are holding on to what has happened in the past, it is impossible for you to see what is about to come in the future. In fact, if you can see the future, how can you embrace the goodness of the future when everything in the past that you keep looking onto are things that are terrible? So in a normal sense, this is the purpose of becoming more conscious and going into the spiritual realm, because at the end of the day you will realize that our life is just based off, it is just an experiment with an experience. Experiment with an experience. And at the end of each person's life, the only thing you are going to have left at the end of your life is your memory. The memory of how you have lived your life. And the thing is, how have you actually lived your life? How many people were you able to forgive in the past? How many people have hurt you in the past that you have been able to forgive, knowing fully well that you have also offended certain people and there are people who have actually forgiven you? But when we do not look at the idea of the fact that we have actually wronged some people, we might put a value or a price tag on it and say, my offense was not as big as this person's offense, but offense is an offense. I have done things that are not good to certain people and they have been able to forgive me. How strong am I to forgive those people who have hurt me in the past? And if you can't forgive those people, you are going to hold on to that memory. And when we talk about heaven and hell, every emotion at the point of death, let me not go too far, but every emotion you hold on and you die with those emotions and those thoughts and those memory, it holds on to your soul for a while, even after you are gone from the body. And then in African culture, we have all kinds of things to talk. The other time I was telling people about the idea like they can call on spirits, but it is after a period of time. And there are some spirits that you can call on, dead people who you can still call on for maybe 2 years, 1 year. And there are some that the spirits you will just see when some people die within a period of 3 months, you cannot consult their spirits anymore. And the reason is because those people that you can consult their spirits in the next 3 months, most of these people did not hold on so much to grudges. A lot of them are hold before they die. And so their spirits would easily flow and move on. But certain individuals hold on to a lot of grudges and they hold on to a lot of maybe some things like, I am not supposed to have deviated from my body. And so it is easy to still call back those souls and use them for all kinds of things. So I don't know, it's really not going to make sense to a lot of people, except you are into the African culture and you understand a little bit about spirituality and the rest of it. But what I'm actually saying in a nutshell is forgiveness is the biggest thing we can do as humans. In fact, you can't love yourself when you decide not to forgive somebody else. You can't really love yourself, because if you truly love yourself, you would understand your own limitations and you will realize that in your unknowing, you have unknowingly offended certain individuals in the past. Regardless of your intentions, regardless of your character, regardless of how kind you have been, certain people would have choose your kindness as an evil, and you still have to forgive them. And so that's my perception on trauma. But the other things has to be, if it is medical conditions, yes, you have to go to see the doctor for medical interventions. And I think with that, that kind of help in a little way. In fact, during those times when my houses were being burnt, living a life when you realize that your first house was being burnt, your second house was being burnt, your third house was being burnt. What kind of trauma is that? That trauma is like, should I even bother myself having a house, or let me just start sleeping under the bridge or something like that? But I made a decision at that point, like, okay, what could be the reason why my houses were being burnt? I realized, okay, there were certain neighborhoods I don't need to stay. And so when I wanted to get property, I started going into property real estate, and I started understanding few things about um, government acquisitions, how to have C of O and all those kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, when I have this knowledge, it will propel me to be able to get properties in the right location. And that's only what I focused on, rather than playing pranks with myself. So that's so far what I've done with my life, and started from the bottom. Now we are here. So is there any question? Miss Eniron or any other person, is there any question or we round up for the day? Are there any questions or we round up for the day? Are there any questions or let's round up for today? Okay, it seems that it says, thank you for sharing. It's really helping me identify some people I need to forgive. Yeah, yeah. Once you truly forgive them, it's going to set you free. You know, the things about the warders, when I was in jail, I realized that the warders are also prisoners. In fact, there was no difference between the warders and the prisoners. The difference is just like they have uniform. So, someone who is holding other people and holding them captive is also in the same situation, because for you to hold people captive, you have to pay attention that they don't escape. So, you protecting the fact that you don't want them to escape, it's just like now you can't go anywhere. And wherever you are, you have to think of the people you hold captive and you start asking yourself, have they escaped? And so you have to do every single thing to make sure they are in captivity. And that's exactly how unforgiveness sounds. When we do not forgive certain people, sometimes our life might be going towards the right direction, but something in our head will be, I hope they are not finding it easy in their life. I hope something is wrong in their life. And before you know, you have brought out that energy and something bad is going to come into your own life, unknowing to you that you are the one bringing something from the past spiritually, basically because you cannot identify the growth of your thoughts, and knowing that what you have think about and you have wished for somebody else, that same seed has been planted to your own future, and then unnecessary tragedy comes. So life is kind of simple if we actually understand few things in it. But with that being said, we've come to the end of today's. I'm glad at least it was a little bit helpful. Um, Thank you everyone for joining me, and thank you for all your support. I really appreciate the support of every single one of us, or every single one of you, for with my channel and the rest of it. Um, okay, said most definitely, yeah. And so I appreciate every support. I appreciate everything. Let's have a great night. By weekend, we are going to be having great subject. I'm planning for things. I was supposed to have a guest on my live show, but YouTube has become so bad. I don't know what happened. Sometimes I try to add up somebody to my guest for us to come live together, and it's not working. So maybe I'm going to try it by weekend or today or tomorrow and see if it's going to work. Then I'm going to be bringing up some guests. But YouTube, since when they've upgraded YouTube and we update it, it has been really difficult for me to add guests, and that's the reason why it's kind of destabilized a lot of my plans. But by God's grace, we are going to find a solution to it. Thank you everyone for joining me. Have a great day. Bye bye for now. Peace.